Yes, Hammond Pool was a big deal, and they also, right beside the Hammond Hall, they put in tennis courts. That was a big deal. I remember everyone playing tennis. And the Hammond Pool was great fun. And yeah, I remember that distinctly. It was the meeting place in the summer for everybody.
There were lots of things that happened at that old Hammond Hall. You know, they had what they called a pro-rec night, recreational night. And I believe if Doug Noble is coming in, I'm not sure if he is, but I know that he knows about it. Doug used to be kind of the pro-rec coordinator down there for tennis and all the indoor sports. Those went on, and every once in a while they would have a play from a, not a glee club, but kind of a community club of some sort. And they would have dances there, famous dances. You waited until you were at least 13 years old to go to a dance. Then you put on your best lipstick and off you went.
One, the annual Mill Christmas party, Hammond Mill Christmas party, which they held at the old Hammond Hall. Hammond Hall was built, it was a bit of a library. It had a film theater there and everything, and an auditorium and a stage. And the mill threw a Christmas party there every year, and every kid from every employee got something for Christmas, and they had Santa Claus and all that stuff. And the other thing that I remember clearly, because I don't know if you've had them here today, but they used to have talent contests there periodically. And there was a young lady that lived just down the street from that hall, Alice Breck, who is better known today as Alice Tippy. She's married to Elmer Tippy. And Elmer came there at this talent contest, playing his guitar and singing. He was always very well received, very talented guy, but Alice tap danced. And Alice was younger and better looking and more talented, so she won that particular talent contest, and Elmer came second. And he keeps telling me that I've got too good a memory for these things.
Probably the weekly event, basically as it was at the old Hammond Hall. They used to have a boxing match, maybe the odd wrestling match. We used to go up there to play some recreational basketball, volleyball, that sort of thing. But
Hammond Hall, Saturday night dances, yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they'd, I forget who the orchestra was, but yeah, we'd go every Saturday night.
We had a big Hammond Hall a couple of blocks away, and I went there to the library, and I'd go there with a stack of books and come back with a stack of books. And really, there was a little playground right by the Hammond Hall, and there was a little wading pool at the back. And I remember doing things there, and there were ball games in that park that's now still a designated park. And so I'd spend a bit of time there, but not much with baseball and that. Like I said, my dad used to cut the grass there after he retired, so he was sort of a maintenance person for a while.
Port Hammond had the best New Year's Eve dance in the Fraser Valley. They had a great band from New Westminster that came out, and we had a crowd that was beyond. It was a big crowd. It was the event of the year, as far as I can remember. But the band was so good, very good band. I'm talking about a good band. It wasn't no noise. It was all good music.
Yes. You know what, Mrs. Tatsui, she lived in Haney, but she got basketball and badminton going. They had badminton every Saturday there in the hall, and the other thing was they put a library there in the hall, and we could go up and get books. And it was Mr. Graham's daughter that ran the library. Yeah, and that was really good. Anytime there was any big event, they had to have it in Hammond Hall. Yeah, and they had their kitchen and everything in the back. Our Christmas concerts were always there, and the school always had a big Christmas concert every year.
Oh yeah, we hung around the river all the time. You know, like I say, when we were even in elementary school, we'd go down with our little fishing lines, and you could crawl underneath the big sheds out where there was a big sewer outfall for, I guess, the whole town of Hammond, the big big pipe. And it was put in, I think, just after the 48 flood there, around the same time. But anyway, you walk out in that pipe and fish for chum, big suckers off it. And there was a Chinese bunkhouse right next door there. There was a great big Chinese. I don't know how many Chinese lived there, but they lived there full time. And in fact, there was 2 families of Chinese people and this big bunkhouse there that lived there, the Lees. And then you go over the bunkhouse and you'd sell the cook. He'd give you a nickel or so, or you swap for firecrackers if it was Halloween time, you know. There was the Chinese guys that always brought firecrackers into the district.
Well, I have a story because my mom and dad, being Finnish, they had Finnish friends on the river that fished. They were actually fishermen on the river, and that's how they made their living. And I must have been, I had I think a tricycle. I was quite young. I went down with Mom and Dad. Mom and I would just walk down because she never drove. And I remember one time there was a big flood. I don't know, in the late 40s or whenever, there was a big flood. And I remember Mom's friends, Mom and I were standing on the dike, and I remember somebody rowing a rowboat from their house to the dike, you know, on the riverside of the dike. And because then you'd go downstairs off the dike to go to their house, you know, to be level with their house. And when that flood, I vividly remember this rowboat coming toward the dike. And so that's nowadays, everybody builds quite high, you know, level with the dike and everything. Well, I remember the wharf. I remember riding my bike down and walking on this public wharf, and that isn't there anymore, you know, and I remember going on it, yeah. And the river, I never realized how big a river it was until we started doing a bit more traveling, and I realized, hey, that's a pretty big river.
I was too scared of the river. I was scared of the river. I had my dish of the Fraser River as a young guy, so I never went near that. I wouldn't go. My brother Ralph liked walking up the bloody stupid things.
We were always told there was undercurrent, and it was very dangerous, so not to go, and so we didn't go. But I know Bernice went across the river a couple times, or more. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the river, unbeknown to my father and mother. I used to sneak down there with a few other of my friends, and I won't name them, but we used to spend a lot of time swimming in the river when we weren't supposed to be there. We used to go down to the Morrison Farm area and go in. I can remember diving in one day and going under the water, and I end up with my arm cutting myself on a piece of glass underwater, and I severed my forearm pretty badly, and that's how my dad found out where I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And I got scolded as well as a few stitches.
The log booms above the mill in the river. You could go out and sit out there. When they used to have hooligans, we could go out there and fish hooligans. I could go out there and sit there by myself. And yeah, anywhere along the railroad tracks in the boom above the mill. The east opes, you could hear them coming up the river, pop, 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 pop. If you want to know what they look like, you can go out to Bruce's Market. God, bless the guy he saved and doctored them up, put them back together. So they're very distinctive sound. And there was 2-cylinder or 1-cylinder and 2-cylinder ones. And all the fish boats had it until they started modernizing them. And I think most kids that lived down across the tracks in Hammond at one time or another actually worked maybe a few shifts in the summertime on those fish boats or played hooky to work on them other times of the year. It was a very strong and vibrant part of Hammond's community. And where Donnie Kugler has his place now, I'm sure everybody at City Hall and the planning department knows where Donnie Kugler lives. The wharf is there. I think parts of it might still be there, I don't know. But the Hammond Wharf was quite a busy center, particularly at Oolican time. They'd come in and set up racks to pick hooligans and stuff like that there, yeah.
Your whole life centered around Hammond. And some of my fondest memories in the spring and summer, is laying in bed listening to the fish boats on the Fraser. You know, they all had E-stope engines, you know, big one-cylinder, pop, 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 pop. Of course, the steam engines were still running in those days, and they blow the whistle at the Hammond Mill, and then again on Lorne Road. Yeah, lots of fond memories. A homey, secure place, for want of a better word.
I think it was exciting because we lived down on the Dyke Road, and we lived on the wrong side of the dike, the water side. And every day we were told not to go near the river, and every day, of course, we did. And in fact, most of us learned to swim there in the Fraser. I don't recommend it, but we did, and it was great. I love being by the Fraser River. There are many people in this community now who live out on the north side who don't even know you can see the Fraser from here. They honestly don't experience that with the music on the wharf and that kind of thing, and having the Billy Miner. They didn't know you could see the Fraser once they left Port. Once, if they were commuting, once they left the Maryhill bypass, the Fraser disappeared and you don't see it. And they'd cut off and go down the back. And anywhere near the Fraser River is a wonderful place. And my mother used to say that too. Again, just about anywhere down around the Fraser. We had a great wharf down there, which is crumbled to bits. And anywhere where we always, our parents, I'm sure, thought we'd all drown or do something terrible. But I guess down by the river, and because my grandfather's property was the Maple Ridge Golf Course, was his original farm, because of that, we always had access to the riverbank along there. And my mother, for years, owned a small piece of property right behind the big Hartnell house. So we could always go down there and have a bonfire, sit and look out at the river, count the trains.
At certain times of the year, in the wintertime, we'd hang out at the golf course, sleigh riding and one thing and another. In the summertime, the kids would hang out there to steal golf balls and sell them back to the clubhouse.
I spent quite a bit of time hunting golf balls at Maple Ridge Golf Course in younger years. I have a story. Yes, it was on the elevated tee, which is number 5 elevated tee, and you couldn't see the green from the tee box. And so back in those days, we would sit on the bank there and wait for the golfers to come up the hill and sell our balls to them. But anyway, a golfer who was one of the local really good golfers, Mary Lee Ward, hit the ball from the tee box, and she put it probably 10, 15 feet from the hole on the green. And as she was walking towards the green, we ripped over there, and I guess me, when I say we, grabbed the ball and put it in the hole. So to this day, she thinks she got a hole-in-one in that hole. I've never told her, I've never mentioned it for fear of repercussions.
Well, I had an aunt, a great aunt, and she would take me out to the golf course, and I would carry her clubs, and she would give me a 5-iron, and that's what I could play with. So I was pretty adept with the 5-iron.
Well, sleigh riding on the golf course in the winter time, we loved doing that. Drag our sleighs up to the golf course and do that. And
I can tell you some stories about the golf course. Of course, we one of the things that we do is we had a little toboggan or sleighs, and you know have you been out there? Yeah. Okay, you had Long Hill, and then there's a Suicide Hill. You know that about too, and then some boys stole some of the big signs. You've seen, you know, they're about the size of that door, a little taller, and you could get about 8 kids on it. And you went like hell, and it had 2 or 3 big bumps before you hit leveled out and hit the pocket at the end. Yeah. And we went down. You didn't try those on those slides or those things on hills, you know, the hills, whatever you want to call it. But you went down with toboggans, and you sure went fast. You never got to the bottom in one piece, but.
And the golf course, like I say, been shagging golf balls and stuff long before we ever learned to play or got to be a caddy or anything like that. We were too young for all that. We were just kind of babby. But wintertime, whew, that was the place. You had all the different hills and the different challenges on these hills was tobogganing down there. When we were little, I think the guys like Swede and Bobby Killsby and those guys, I think they stole the signs off the big Firestone signs and stuff off the garages. Eventually the garages saved the signs, so or save an old sign when a guy come by with his new sign. They saved it for the kids. So you take these up, you'd say bend the front up and chain it down, wire it down with something, and make a front on it, and down those bloody hills you'd go. And one of a suicide hill, it would just right off. I think the 8th hole or something like that, just leaped right off. Well, that was a gutsy one. But just over from it, closer to where the clubhouse was, there was a nice one that went down and up and down. And you could go right down to a ditch that was way down the end. And the odd time you made it down there to the ditch until you bailed off. And there was kids from Maple Ridge area there, the 3rd Avenue bunch. They'd go there too. So you'd have the two different groups that would meet there.